I actually wanted to focus on a couple players after this preseason game and basically had this question that I threw out to you guys in the chat, which is, has blank done enough to make the team? And I just want to go through like a couple players. Some of them we've already covered, but
Yep.
since we were already talking about James Mitchell, let's start with the tight ends. This was James Mitchell's first game, but he looked really good in limited action.
Yeah, he did.
And but he's still in a battle for that, I would say, tight end 3 spot with Zylstra and Devin Funches. I mean, do you feel like any of those guys have done enough to make the team as of right now? Like, is there anybody that you would plant a flag on as like, oh yeah, that's tight end 3 right now?
Scott?
I thought he was asking you, Gian, but I will hop in here. Just
I mean, I can go.
well, because you brought up Mitchell, so that's
Yeah.
what you
So
said.
I guess so. Zylstra played quite well. As he had the very high PFF grade, as Scott pointed out earlier. I guess the question boils down to: do you think Mitchell gets maybe not priority treatment, but the fact that he was just drafted and is a rookie? Do you think that that swings the pendulum in his favor?
I do. Personally, yes.
I do too. And so I can definitely see them, especially like if he came out and just laid an egg, then it was like, okay, he was what? Because he was 6th round?
6th round, yes.
6th round. So yeah, you took a shot on this guy in the 6th. He came out, he laid an egg. So okay, so what? No, not much lost.
No harm, no foul.
Right. So, but he came out and he played really well. He was sure-handed. He blocked well. He set the edge really well and allowed, I think it was Justin Jackson, one of the to kick it outside and get a hefty pickup from the outside. So like he blocked well. He had sure hands. From a 6th round rookie, that's exactly what you want to see. And I think the fact that he is a rookie just drafted, I think it's Mitchell.
Okay, so now Zylstra. Where did Zylstra come from? Like I saw him in the game today, or not today, but when I watched the game against the Colts, he really did pop off the screen a bunch of times for me. Now Mitchell did have some plays, but Zylstra really was a part of the game. I felt like. Where did he come from?
I believe he was on the roster last year.
Yeah, he was.
He got some limited run late in the season last year.
John that's right. Okay. So he's been in the system for a year. So he's okay. So I think that this game against Pittsburgh will be good for both of them, right? I think we'll see if Mitchell can hang and what Zylstra can do. I think that this is pretty tight. I think Funches is kind of out because of his injuries, his injury history. I just think that this team we really do need reliability and to make sure everybody's going to be playing. So I think that will be tough for Funches to overcome. But I don't know. So that's where I'm at. So I think it's Zylstra. Mitchell, I don't know. I can't play the flag yet.
Gotcha. I was gonna say for me, I'm kind of with John. I'm planting the flag on James Mitchell. I think he really impressed in both pass and run blocking. He had a bad whiff, but then he came back on like the next couple plays and blocked really, really well, showed sure hands, and I think he's what they're looking for behind a TJ Hawkins and behind a Brock Wright, is a guy who can block and go out there and catch the football. Not saying that Zylstra can't, but this is what you drafted James Mitchell to do.
Right.
It's not his fault that he came. Like, you drafted him injured, so it's not like he got injured in camp.
Right.
You drafted him this way. So
you must have liked what you see.
Well, you have to like what you have seen in college, and I don't want to say that you owe it to him, right? Because everybody has to earn their way, but it would feel kind of silly to me to ding him for his availability when you drafted a guy that was coming off an ACL injury. You knew you had a good idea that he probably wasn't going to be able to participate a ton in camp. Now, I agree with you, Scott, that the Pittsburgh game is going to, clear up a couple things, but I do think the Lions will lean towards keeping their draft pick. Again, not wanting to risk cutting him and losing him. Because now that he's healthy, like, you could cut him and potentially lose him.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
So I think they go the safe route, keep the guy that they drafted. And there's a couple other players that we're going to go through on this list. But one of the themes that you're at least going to see from me, from my takes, is that I think they're going to want to keep the guys that they want to invest heavily in when it comes to development. The guys that they believe that they can develop the best.
Makes sense.
And James Mitchell falls into that category for me right now with the tight ends.
So who do you think, Miko, who's your developmental, because you texted, you gave us a little tease about this. Who is your developmental pick for this very controversial wide receiver core? We have Kennedy, Cephas, Benson, Alexander, Pimpleton, sort of all on the bubble.
Kennedy!
Yeah. It's not Kennedy for me. I'm sorry. For me, it's really going to come down to Benson and Alexander for me, right?
Not even Cephas?
So this is the thing. I think if Cephas makes it because they know what they already have in Cephas, and they feel very confident in, listen, once we get in season, like, Cephas will be active on game days. This is the problem that I have with Tom Kennedy. Even if Tom Kennedy were to make the team, I do not believe Tom Kennedy's going to be active on game days. Cephas would be. Trinity Benson would be. Maurice Alexander would probably be your primary kick and punt returner, so he would be active. And I believe if we're talking about development, it's really tight between Benson and Alexander on who they want to invest in more. We already know Brad Holmes traded for Trinity Benson, and Trinity Benson has looked good in camp, and he's even looked good in some preseason games. Like, he can't determine if the play is called for him to get the ball.
Right.
He hasn't dropped passes, so it's not like he's underperforming in that context. But I do believe Cephas makes the team over Kennedy because of just, again, past experience, and they just probably feel a little more comfortable with him. When it comes down to Benson and Alexander, I believe it's going to come down to Maurice Alexander just because of how dynamic he is on kick and punt return. Like, he is lightning in a bottle, and I think they would probably put their eggs in that basket, especially because I don't think they keep Iggy.
That's fair. God, I just love Kennedy so much. I've loved Kennedy last year. I love Kennedy this year.
He's a preseason superstar. Three preseasons in a row now.
It's his gig.
He threw a touchdown. He threw a touchdown in the game, didn't he?
Oh, that's true. He did last season. Yes, you're right.
You know, I mean, dude can chuck the rock. Maybe he's our fourth quarterback if we need it. You know, I just Kennedy. Yes, he's a preseason rock star, but the guy can run routes and catch the ball, and he's been reliable and consistent, and he's translated that from, you know, it was more in practice last year and less in games, but like so far in the 2 preseason games, he's caught everything. He has made big plays. He's gotten open. I'm just still on the Kennedy bandwagon.
And
so,
that's
again, but I get Miko. I get your point from a coach's standpoint. Scott, that's standpoint. Like, I just want to.
Well, that's why I was gonna. I mean, again, to press you a little bit on this, if you're setting up your active players for a game,
I know what Miko's doing here.
Are you picking Tom Kennedy over Khalif Raymond, Amon-Ra St. Brown? Are you going to be putting them in the game over those two guys? The answer is no. And because he primarily is going to play in the slot, like, I get it, he's played outside in preseason, but he's playing outside against, no offense, no disrespect to anybody, but like, those are not the starting corners.
Well, I agree. I agree with you. I'm just a Kennedy fan. Okay, it's like,
well, you're not the only one.
But you're not the only one, man.
And
hometown hero.
He's got some moves. I mean, I don't know if. Yeah, I think he probably gets scooped. Right? You're not gonna. I mean, he probably gets scooped. The other thing too to note with this, when you do have Hard Knocks every year, like, teams get to see more of your players, right? So a lot of these guys that we don't think might get scooped will get scooped just because they're getting more airtime, right? Just in general.
Sure.
So that's what kind of stinks for us this year, because a lot of these guys that if we were under the radar and nobody really cares about the Lions, I don't care what's going on over there, we could have, you know, got them after waivers. But But Miko, your point makes sense. What do we think about Pimpleton? Right, that dude is fast though too. I mean, he's fast, but like, small. I mean,
I think Pimpleton ultimately is in the same position as Kennedy, where, and Scott, I completely agree with you. I love watching Tom Kennedy. I'm a huge fan, and he can run routes and he can catch the ball and he is, as Dan Campbell says, Mr. Reliable. But if he can't add any value beyond that, then there are guys who do. Like Maurice Alexander can run routes and can catch the ball and can also be an electric punt returner. Godwin Igwebuike, what's that?
Or gunner on
punt. Or gunner, yeah. It's like, oh man, and I feel like this is a foreign concept for like Lions fans of like having to cut talented guys, Like when, granted, I've never been this invested. Sorry, go ahead.
Nothing. I said, especially after last year with our wide receiver room.
Exactly. Like, and maybe it's just because I'm, finally paying attention to, like, really paying attention to preseason, but it seems like, yeah, we're having to cut talented guys off this team. And that's the mark of really good teams, or teams that are on the up and up, that are trending upwards. But man, it makes for really good conversations. It makes for very difficult decisions. And like, because Tom Kennedy's really, really good at what he does, but I don't think he does enough other stuff to make him a valuable asset to this team in the way that Maurice Alexander, Godwin Igwebuike, or Khalif Raymond do.
Watch Kennedy go to Green Bay.
And I also just
oh my God.
Watch Kennedy go to Green Bay and light it up.
Don't you put that evil on me.
Evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
Don't you put that evil.
I'm just saying.
But yeah, so just to lock it in for me, I believe Maurice Alexander has done enough to make this team. And I also believe that Quintez Cephas, despite not playing yet, has done enough in training camp and in prior seasons for the coaching staff to be like, no, we need Q. So
I will stand by. I think I texted this to you guys on game day. That interception that Blau had, where it hit the receivers that popped up, Cephas gets that. Like that doesn't bounce out. Like even though it's into double coverage, it was not a great decision to throw the ball to that player. But dude, Cephas gets that. That's what he does. Like that's why he's on the team. And I think ultimately that's why he makes the team, is because he comes away with that catch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Linebackers. Or no, DL.
Oh, okay. DL is Josh. John, you already kind of said your goodbyes to Jashaun.
Right.
Talk about preseason hype.
Oh man, right?
Spring camp hype. That fizzled out quickly. But in the wake of that, Demetrius Taylor and could make this team and be very serviceable in the middle, especially when we're talking about trying to put together a defensive line that's going to stop the run consistently.
Yeah. So did you because you kind of microphone cut out a little bit. So we were talking about Demetrius Taylor being a surprise and he's doing really good. And then were you talking about Bugs or Kaminsky?
Bugs.
Okay, Bugs. Yeah, no. That's who Pride of Detroit had on there, is like that he's done enough and that he's in. I mean, to think just last week I was having veritable panic attacks about what we were going to do on this defensive line without Onwuzurike and Pascal. And then sure enough, and then literally Bryant emerges.
Yep.
Demetrius Taylor steps up. Like all these guys are taking a step forward. And I mean, yes, it's preseason and yes, these games don't matter, but this whole next man up mindset, it seems like this is what good teams have. And this is what good teams do, or at least teams that are trending up. And it's just great to see it on the Lions. And it's a foreign feeling to feel this way for a Lions team.
No, for sure. And again, I think in the case going back to who I think they want to develop, I think they want to develop a guy like Demetrius Taylor, an undrafted guy that is just has been solid in camp, has been very, very dominant in camp. So again, a guy that you probably don't want to risk losing out on, and a guy that you're just like, hey, we'll keep him as a depth guy and we'll kind of develop him along the way.
Scotty, questions?
I have no questions, just statements. Yeah, I agree with you guys on Taylor. And Kaminsky, I mean, he just had a great game.
Yeah.
Well,
they say he like plays the same way that Hutchins is, relentless.
And that's what we need, and that's what this team, this Lions team, this gritty Lions team wants to be. And that's what Dan said in Hard Knocks, John, you'll see it, but he just wants these guys to keep going. And to be relentless, and you have to be a winner, right? Because you have to be at the end of the games to not make mistakes and keep going and going in order to win that game, so you don't lose it or give it away by mistakes like we have at the end of the game. You will appreciate his pre-meeting speech. It was
nice.
I mean, it was a little cheese, but he made a good point.
One thing that really is, there's the abstract benefit of like being relentless and it's grit but that's all like intangible, abstract. One thing that's very tangible about a relentless player, as we saw in the few downs that Aiden Hutchinson played, when you're relentless, they have to hold your ass. And you draw holding penalties from the offense. And that's incredibly valuable, tangible result to your style of play.
And the only thing that I'll say in regards to Kaminsky, because I do think his play on the field has been very impressive, and at the very least, it's worthy of a practice squad spot. The thing that is working against him is that you still have Julian Okwara, and Austin Bryant has just really kicked the door. And I don't know if you have room for another edge rush guy behind him.
And I think what we don't know too is the way in which Dan and Deuce are gonna, like, where they're gonna cut and where they're gonna keep. Right? If we knew where they wanted to hold on to more, right? Like it would help us organize thoughts too, right?
Like, because you're talking about like they're going from next week, they have to go from 80 to 53. Like that's the cut, and that's a huge cut, and we're probably going to be more wrong than we are right in some of these situations. But I didn't add him on the list, but another guy that's probably in that mix of somebody that's probably going to get cut that just hasn't done enough is James Houston.
Yeah.
Right? Another late round pick from the Lions that he's practice squad bound. He needs more development. He needs more muscle, more just physical traits kind of built up to really be an impactful player for this team down the road.
He looked huge when they drafted him.
He did, yeah.
But he's stocky. Not as much on the field.
He's stocky, Rico. He's stocky. No, but look.
Yeah, he has long arms and he has like a big torso. But like you look at him, especially against this Colts game, he gets swallowed.
Oh yeah,
by tackles. Like he tries to go like down the chest of tackles, or even if he tries to get around, like he doesn't have quite the size to make that transition or to get around tackles
right
as easily as some of the other players on this team do.
What's the whole Jayshon Cornell effect again? I mean, the dude put up the dude led in like every exercise. Like he was the number one spot on the leaderboard for the entire defensive line, and yet he's the lowest ranked player according to PFF as the stats you read earlier. So,
just this game, yeah,
a lot of this stuff kind of just you'd think it would. And this is what's so funny about this stuff is you'd think so much of this stuff would translate, but just sometimes it doesn't, and technique leaves you scratching your head as to why.
Technique is still instinct. Yeah, technique, instinct, and staying true to fundamentals probably and is a key
fundamental
indicator.
And mindset. I mean, look at Aiden, right? I mean, even Aaron Glenn was just like complimenting Aiden of like, kind of like, thank goodness you're what we thought you were.
Yeah. Right. So this ties in. I want to touch on this. I've been meaning to bring this up, and we're running long, and so I'm going to say this as succinctly as I can. But this is about fundamentals, because I teased it earlier. One thing that I think, so Dan Campbell in his presser before day 2 of the Colts practice. So there was that, Lions unequivocally got dominated day 1. And then, so he gives a press conference before each day. Before day 2 with the Colts, he talked about a lot of the guys, they come out here and we just drill fundamentals. And then you come out against a new opponent. It's actually got on an opposing team. So you're not playing against a teammate. And the ego kind of takes over a little bit. And those fundamentals that you've been working on just go right out the window because you're so excited and you want to prove yourself. And so you start playing a little bit more from a place of maybe like from a place of ego, as opposed to a place of like, this is my gap, no matter what else, like this is my assignment. And no matter what else is going on, I think that's why they value Rodrigo so much, is because he always knows his assignment. And I think this is really pulls into focus of why he's so universally praised even outside of Detroit, is he sticks to the plan regardless of what else is going on. And that comes back to the fundamentals. And I think in that press conference, Dan Campbell emphasized returning to the fundamentals. Okay, those were first day jitters. We just got to get back to the fundamentals that we've been doing. And that could have been seen as coach speak. And I think if the Lions came out and got dominated again day 2, yes, coach speak, 100%. But they came out and they were the ones who dominated day 2. So I think that speaks to the fact of this is something that they are installing. This is part of the culture. This is that grit, that attention to detail that they have been going. I think this will translate to the regular season. It's just they needed to get over that hump of, it's one thing to have the fundamentals when you are lined up across the same person every day for two straight weeks. And then you jump to being lined up across a person who is on a different team, another professional, maybe even a little bit better than you. And so it's very easy to see how that stuff does go out the window and you forget about it. But they reined in, they refocused, and they were the ones to dominate day 2. I don't think that's an accident. And that is something I absolutely think translates to the regular season.
Well said.
But anyway.
Okay,
linebackers.
So before I was gonna say let's get into these linebackers. So we can wrap up this episode.
Yeah.
All right. So we in this situation we have Jared Davis, Anthony Pittman, and Josh Woods, I believe.
Josh Woods, yeah.
Has
do we want to throw Chris Board? Do we want to throw Chris Board in here? Let's throw Chris Board in here because Sean Dion Hamilton got cut today, so let's throw Chris Board in here just for kicks. Of those 4 guys, I'll make this easier. Who do you think hasn't done enough to make this team? John, let's start.
It kills me to say, but Jared Davis.
Really?
For the same reason as like Kennedy. I mean, they seem to be super high on Pittman. They seem to be very high on Pittman. Pittman seemed to play quite well. Josh Woods, it seems like he's flashed. Jared Davis has looked better in coverage than he ever has, which is great, but to be honest, it's not saying much. I don't know. It's tough.
Hold on. Elaborate on that point. What do you mean?
Whoa.
By that?
What?
You said that he's improved in coverage, but not by much. Where like that's not.
No, sorry. So I may have misspoke. He has improved in coverage, but from what he has been in the past, that's not saying very much.
Yeah, so what does that mean though? Because like improvement is improvement. Like,
I mean, that's fair, and that's something I've even said. So good to be putting my feet to the fire here, and that's good.
What he's really trying to say is
what I'm really trying to say is I don't know enough to make. I'm just talking.
So, to me personally, the person who hasn't done enough, and I get it a lot, I'm probably in the minority here. It's Anthony Pittman to me. I don't get it. I really don't.
I'm with Miko here immediately.
John, like I've read the same things you've read, and everybody is singing the praises of Anthony Pittman. And I watch and I'm looking and I'm trying to understand what it is that he is doing so well that is so irreplaceable over what Jared Davis does. And the only thing I can think of is that I think some fans, some writers are still only looking at Jared Davis as a middle linebacker, in my opinion. That people are stuck at looking at him as only a guy that can play in the middle. And why do you need another guy to play in the middle when you have Alex Anzalone and Derek Barnes? But I believe that Jared Davis can do everything that Anthony Pittman is doing just as well. If you're putting Anthony Pittman on the edge and you want him to rush the quarterback, Jared Davis can do that. So you even said it yourself. He has improved, in my opinion, immensely in coverage because he was a liability in coverage when he was here.
I mean, he had a pass breakup this last game. He had a pass breakup. That was unheard of.
Yeah, it's not even just. I mean, there's the pass breakup, and then there's the simple fact of this. Whenever I've turned on these preseason games so far, and look, if things go awry against Pittsburgh, then fine, they go awry. But what we used to see from Jared Davis in coverage when he was with the Lions the first time around is that the teams would pick on Jared Davis, like specifically put tight ends
on him
and go right at it. And I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing Jared Davis get picked on in coverage and him looking lost in zones or him not knowing where he's supposed to be. So I look at Anthony Pittman and it's like, okay, well, if you're telling me that what Jared Davis is going to have to do then is cover kicks and cover punts and then occasionally rush the passer, I'm sorry. I think he does that really well.
I agree.
So to me, Jared Davis has done enough. I think Chris Board has done enough. Josh Woods, I mean, I don't know. Josh Woods hasn't really flashed to me either, to be frank. He's also like repping with the third string. So like, that's probably why.
Right. And I think that in the moment, and to me, I'm just supporting Miko in that, I just want to come from a different angle for 1 second and say, the guy at the end of the game who ran over to talk to AG was Davis, right? For that final stop. I mean, he was the guy. He's like, JD, get over here. And that's who they called over. So,
not just called over, but told him to set the tone. Like,
right. Like, so if you're telling him
get these guys together, get these guys together.
Okay.
And then for Dan Kill would be like, win the game. This is the game. Like, we know it's the game, Dan. Okay. But that to me, they see him as a leader a little bit, right? Maybe there's some of that too, because he's been here, he's gone, and he's come back. He's left and come back. I mean, that experience has to help motivate you to get it right, do it right. I mean, to your point. I mean, I've seen immense improvement, and that is because of the coaching and his effort. So, yeah. So I think that he's done enough. So I'm there too.